Hey, Dr. John Finn here. Welcome to the Habit Mechanic podcast. Right now, you can get my new best-selling book, Train Your Brain for the AI Revolution, at tougherminds.co.uk. The digital book, audiobook, and physical book are all available at a special price that you won't find anywhere else. Hello, Habit Mechanics. Dr. John Finn here. I hope you're well. I am doing a walking podcast, which is why there's a bit of background noise. I used to do these quite a lot. I don't know why I stopped doing them actually, but the sun is shining. Autumn is clearly creeping in where I am, but it's a nice day. And the weather feels like a bit of a break from the world. What I mean by that is the world feels pretty stormy at the moment. There are so many things going on. So many things that can stress us out and can fill our brains with lots of unhelpful chemicals and neurotransmitters that make it more difficult for us to be at our best. So I thought I'd spend a bit of time talking at quite a high level about what is stress, why does it happen, and what can we do if we want to be more resilient. And even, what is resilience, to explore that. I'm actually preparing a talk for a group of leaders I'm speaking to in the City of London in a few weeks about this, about resilience and why it's important. So it kind of fits into some of the prep conversations I've been having around that. Let's start with the basics. What is stress? Stress is just a natural, or let's be more specific, a stress response is just a natural response in your brain that is connected to our fight or flight survival systems. And the reason you will find anything stressful is because what you expect to happen doesn't happen. That could be a stress response that is sort of classic fight or flight, where something makes you jump because you hear a loud bang, or it could be the fact that you just had a difficult conversation with one of your colleagues and you're not very happy about how it went. You didn't expect them to speak to you like that, or you're a bit disappointed that you spoke to them in a particular way. Could be because you walked through the door and you expected the kids to say, "Hey, how are you doing? Did you have a good day?" But they just ignored you. So it's this disconnection of meaning systems. And sorry, I'm walking up a hill, so I'm slightly out of breath. But there are two meaning systems that we have. One is called global meaning. That is our sense of what we think should be happening. And the other system is what we call situational meaning. That is what is actually happening. And what I've just explained about those different situations, essentially what is happening there is that there's a disconnection between what you think should be happening, your global meaning system, and what is happening. So you get these disconnections, and you can obviously get more than one at a time, and that's when things get overwhelming. And what I found particularly interesting about, I suppose, the post-pandemic world, if we can call it that, and the way I refer to it now, it's like the VUCA world on steroids. VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world on steroids. After the pandemic we've all been through, is that there are so many disconnections going on. Whether it's just doing everyday jobs and tasks like banking. Now I have to do it online. I can't go to the high street anymore. How do I use AI to make me more effective at my job? How do I sleep properly? How do I manage this younger group of employees that seem to act and respond a bit differently to people of my own age? Have my kids settle back into school after the pandemic? All this stuff is going on. And in academia, when you get a high volume of disconnections, that is what they define as a transition. It's a transitional state. So a definition of a transition really is a heightened state of change, and it changes across in all different areas of your life. So there'll be things going on at work, things going on at home, possibly things going on in your social life, etc. Things going on around just struggling to maybe maintain good sleep, good diet, good exercise, habits and routines. So I think that what the post-pandemic world has done, the VUCA world and steroids, it's catapulted most people into this almost, again, what academics would call it, it's a non-normative transition. So transitions are either they're normal, they call them normative, or they're non-normal, non-normative. And, normal transitions are things like transitioning from being a teenager to an adult, transitioning from being a worker to a boss, transitioning from being not a parent to a parent, all this kind of stuff that we go through, retiring and having a job, then not having a job. But so there are all these, I suppose, pretty predictable transitions in our life, but there are also non-predictable transitions, non-normative transitions, and I think that's what the pandemic has generated. And essentially, when you get a disconnection, you get two things broadly happen: the fight or flight, the fight, flight or freeze response activates, so you get this pretty complex and extremely fast reaction being driven by the limbic regions of your brain that gets you ready to do something. Really, it gets you into, as the theoretical model suggests, fight, flight, freeze. Freeze is just when you're gonna pay heightened attention to something and just pay more attention to what's going on around you. And then after that, and that increases in a habit mechanic language, increases your activation levels. And the second part of that process is you start to worry, dwell, beat yourself up. The your horribly unhelpful emotions just starts to spotlight the light from the lighthouse brain in that model. Sorry, there's a delivery van reversing and it's making a very loud beeping sound. Now it's going. So that horribly unhelpful emotions, it just gets magnetised to the threat, the problem, the worry, which could be in the past, the present, or the future, connected to this stress response, this disconnection of meaning systems. So essentially we get our attention, our emotions drive our attention to think about things that are not that helpful for us. And of course, if we keep thinking in that way, it becomes a habit. So that's how stress happens. It's about a disconnection. And then there's a neurobiological response that follows, both physical and psychological. And again, in the world of academia, they have the language of semantic anxiety, which is, bodily feelings of anxiety. And you also have cognitive anxiety, which is about, feeling anxious, cognitively, or thoughts. The good news is, by understanding that process in a step-by-step way, we can undo it. And we can undo it faster than it would naturally become undone. And of course, in the habit mechanic approach, we have loads of tools that we teach people to help them to manage that process better. And I think of it as processing out stress. You've got to process stress. Your best weapon for processing stress is high quality sleep. And of course, if you stress, that's the first thing that becomes difficult to do. So we have, different tools like our FAB and our broadly our focus reflection tools. But a bigger thing that can be helpful when we're considering how do I get better at stress is bringing in the concept of resilience. Because if we want to manage stress better, we can broadly be more resilient. And I think that brings an interesting question up, is what is resilience? Because I think people have their own definition for it. I mean, I've worked in these fields for nearly 25 years now, and it feels like everyone, if you could ask them what does resilience mean, and almost everyone could give you a slightly different answer. But if we want to understand concepts and use them better in our own lives, it's good to have a definition of what it means. And the way I would see resilience, it's a two-part process. And in this stress example, it would be 1, recognising that I'm stressed, recognising that I am worrying too much, recognising that I'm just sort of on heightened alert all the time. And then the second component is doing something about it. So it's about building some new habits that will mean you get stressed less, you encounter less of those disconnections, but when you do, you're well equipped to deal with them, or you're better equipped to deal with them. So that's resilience. So you can take a sort of broader view on it, which would just be it's recognising whether the things that you're thinking and doing are helping you to be at your best, or they're getting in the way of you being at your best. In our approach, we make a point of making a big distinction between positive and negative versus helpful and unhelpful. Something that's positive is not necessarily helpful. Something that's negative is not necessarily unhelpful. So we focus on, is it helpful to be doing and thinking those things? Remember, most of what we do most of the time is automatic, semi-automatic. And if we recognise that's unhelpful, worrying and beating myself up all the time, then what can I do about it? How can I build a new habit? And of course, the mechanic that's driving that, if you want to go even deeper into the science, it's emotional regulation, which is what neuroscientists call it, or it's self-control, which is what social scientists call it. So that's what we're doing. So I don't want to go drone on for too long here. I'm sure you've got better things to do with your day than listen to me. Although it's a shame because I've gone up the hills now, so my breath should be slightly more balanced. But, in summary, we live in a really complex world. It's, the weather equivalent is stormy conditions almost all the time. I suppose almost like the extreme weather conditions that we are actually physically experiencing in the real world. That leads to heightened levels of stress. Some people say, I don't get stressed. Well, when I say stress, I just mean a very natural response that happens inside our bodies, starting inside our brains. Everybody has that response. And when you have too many, although stress is a natural response, when you are stressed for too long, in stress states for too long, and you find yourself in too many stress states, it destroys your brain, essentially. People talk about brain fog. That's probably a stress problem. Talk about imposter syndrome. That's a stress problem. So, stress is very foundational to any problems that we're experiencing, or for most of the problems we're experiencing. Sometimes people just procrastinate, and maybe there's not enough stress to get them to take action. But I don't want to get too deep into that. But stress is here. It's easier to get stressed. It's easier to habitualise being stressed, worrying, beating yourself up, etc. And if we're going to combat it, we need to be more resilient. And the heartbeat of being resilient is getting better at regulating your emotions. And that's the heart of the habit mechanic approach. So, every tool we teach is all about helping people to get better at regulating their emotions, which means, biologically, strengthening some very specific sites in the prefrontal cortex so that they are better able to manage and sort of dampen down the sometimes unhelpful activity of the survival centres in our brain, otherwise known as the limbic regions. Or the way we describe that is we got to strengthen our willpower so that it's better at managing and having a positive relationship with you. So that's a bit of an off-the-cuff podcast. I hope it's got you thinking. If you're thinking, what are all these stress tools that I need to start using? Well, I'd start by reading chapter 19 of the Habit Mechanic book, read chapter 21, read chapter 22, or go into the app, Habit Mechanic University app, and you can find sort of more bite-sized versions of those learnings, and you can actually start using the tools. So, put your habit building on automatic. So yeah, you can go there and you can learn more. And if you scroll through this podcast, you will see other episodes in stress. You can just search Habit Mechanics Stress. So thank you so much for listening. And remember, yeah, you can get a free copy of the Habit Mechanic book, plus shipping. If you don't have one already, I think just getting the physical copy is very, very powerful. I hear people say that all the time because it just makes it more real. It's a big book, and it's the kind of book you want to be annotating and making notes in, and putting post-it notes in, etc. So getting the physical copy is really, really powerful, even if you've already got the audio or the ebook. We don't make any money by selling you the free book. Literally, it costs us money, but I would still recommend you get it, and we'll stump the money that it costs us, because we just want to get that stuff out there and help people. Remember, we are not set in stone. We are not fixed. It's nature plus nurture, so we can get better, and we never know which new habit we're going to build that is going to be the differentiator. It could just be an end of day reflection that makes all the difference, which is why we say you're only ever one habit away. Thanks for listening to the Habit Mechanic podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe and tell someone else about one of the ideas or insights that you found most interesting.